Hello and welcome to this video where we shall learn how to set up subnets in our VPC. As we saw in the introduction, we shall be setting up two public subnets which are accessible to the internet and two private subnets each in two different availability zones. So in the left panel, you will see subnets. So you click subnets. Here you will find a list of available default subnets already. So what we shall do is create subnet. The first step is to select a VPC. This is the default, but let's rather select the one that we just created, VPC A. Okay, so for the first one, and then under the name, enter VPC A public subnet AZ1. So the public sub, this is the first public subnet in the first availability zone. And then for the availability zone, we shall select US East 1A. So for the address, for the IPv4 address range, we shall enter 10.0.0.0/24. Right. So here we can then validate the tags. We have an automatic tag for the name, which is good. We shall just leave that as a default. So the main thing here is to give it a name, choose the region, US East 1, and then we set the address range. That being said, we can create the subnet. Okay, so we have one new subnet under this VPC. Okay, so we shall go ahead and create another subnet. So first of all, we start by setting the name VPC A private sub. So this is going to be a private subnet, and then we select the availability zone US East 1A, same as the availability zone for the public subnet that we just created, and then for the address range 10.0.1.0/24. That's the address range, which gives us 256 IPs. And then, of course, the tag is entered automatically. So this shall be the private subnet in that availability zone. So let's create the subnet. Okay, so we see here that we have now a public subnet and a private subnet. So we need to create two more in another availability zone. We need to create another public subnet, another private subnet in a different availability zone. So we do create subnet. As usual, we select our VPC. This time around, we give it a name. This time it's VPC A public subnet in the second availability zone. So this time around, we shall select US East 1B, a different availability zone. And then for the address range, 10.0.2.0/24. That's the address range that we shall use in this case. And of course, the tag is there by default. So let's create the subnet. Okay, so this is the subnet that we just created. And then let's create the last subnet, which this time around will be the private subnet in the second availability zone. Create subnet. We select the VPC. Then we give it a name, VPC private subnet. We select US East 1B. And then the address range will be 10.0.3.0/24. All right. So you see that these address ranges are such that they don't overlap, and that is why these subnets will be logically isolated from each other. So let's go ahead and create the subnet. It's successfully created. So if we look at all the subnets, we see the 4 different subnets and 4 different address ranges which are logically isolated from each other. All devices in one subnet can communicate with each other, but then devices in one subnet cannot communicate with those in another subnet unless we set up what is called routing tables, and we shall see that shortly. So that brings us to the end of this section. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you were enriched by it. See you in the next section.